Okay, so today we're discussing how to find a greatest common factor, usually called the GCF. So what that means is the largest value evenly divisible all terms. So essentially, since we're talking about things that are plus and minus, we want to pull out a common factor, and that means we want to be able to evenly divide all of the values that we see. So looking at the first problem, we have negative 2y minus 6. The next thing is, whatever the sign is on this first term, that should be the sign on your GCF. So for my GCF, it's going to be negative since it's a negative 2 in the way that this is written. So I look for my values. So I'm looking for 2 and 6, and I can see that those both divide by the biggest value of 2. I do have a variable y, but there is no y on the 6. That means I cannot divide y out. So my GCF is going to be negative 2. And since I want to write this as a factored set, it's going to be negative 2 times what happens when I divide. So negative 2y divided by negative 2 gives me a value of y. And 6 divided by negative 2 is my second term. And that will leave me a value of minus 3. So my factor set is going to be negative 2 times the quantity y minus 3. So we're trying to take something essentially that is a value plus a value plus a value and turn it into something times something. So essentially factors. So we want to rewrite it into a factored set with parentheses is our goal here. So that's what we want to have. Okay. So let's look at the next problem, C. So I need to divide through both terms. I see that I have a 2 and a 2. That means I should be able to divide by 2. And I see I have z cubed and z. Now, when I have two variables, I should be able to divide for at least one term all the way out. So to do that, I'm looking at the most common. So z cubed, there's 3 z's. Z is by itself. So I know there's a z in every term. Essentially, to divide out, what you want to look at is the lowest exponent, because that's what is common. So whatever the smallest exponent is, you have at least that on every term for variables. So z, z. Now what do I have? 2z is my GCF. So looking at the first term, 2z cubed over 2z, that is going to leave me with z squared. Remember your exponent rules. Z to the third, z times z times z over z. So that's essentially exponents of 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 giving me z squared. And then on the next one, I actually have 2z divided by 2z. And that is going to give me 1 because a number divided by itself is always 1. So since it is 2z over the exact same 2z, essentially what happens is this crosses out. So that's gone. And I'm left with 1. Remember that I had 2 terms, so when I find the GCF, I still need 2 terms in here. Because if I multiply this back out, so I basically take this 2 and distribute it back through, I better get back. So if I distribute to check, then I should get back to what I started with. Okay? All right, let's try the next one. So I'm looking at E. I see a negative, so my GCF should be negative. 6 and 3 both divide by 3. Then looking at h squared and h, the lowest exponent is on h. So that is what I'm going to divide by, because that h value, I should have at least h in every single term. So h and h, so negative 3h. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 is 2. H squared over h is h. 3h divided by negative 3h. So 3h over 3h is 1, but it's negative, so minus 1. That is my answer. On the next one, I'm going to change my exponents a little bit so you can see what happens if I have a bigger value. Let's try m to the 5th, m to the 4th, m to the 3rd. So I'm changing this. This is not the same as what you'll see on your paper. All right, so negative, because the first term is negative. 20, 24, and 32. I'll divide by 4. And now I'm looking at my exponents on m, and I see that m to the 3rd is the smallest one. So all of these, m to the 5th, m to the 4th, m to the 3rd, should all have m times n times n. So I'm looking at the smallest one. That's the one I'm going to put as my GCF. So my GCF is negative 4 m to the 3rd, and then I divide each set. So negative 20 divided by negative 4 is 5. M to the 5th over m cubed is m squared. 24 divided by negative 4 is negative 6. M to the 4th over m cubed is m. Negative 32 over negative 4 is negative 8. And then I have m cubed over m cubed. That's what the variables are doing. So, and that is 1. So essentially, this variable here divided out. So on my answer, I'm just going to have 8 for my last term. This is what should happen. So one of your variables should always divide out entirely if you have a variable to divide out. And then that is how you do a GCF.